Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. 2 years ago, Central Florida went 0-12 on the season. Now they are 12-0, American Athletic Conference champions, and have earned themselves a spot in the NY6 Bowl. 8 weeks ago, Oklahoma lost at home to Iowa State in a major upset. Now they are Big 12 champions, they've earned themselves a spot in the college football playoff, and haven't lost since that date. 3 weeks ago, Auburn defeated Georgia in dominating fashion, but now Georgia has gotten their revenge, defeating Auburn 28-7 in the SEC championship game, and have earned themselves a spot in the college football playoff as well. We've been discussing for over a month now which teams should go into the top 4, and today they have been revealed. The top 4 teams in the country that will be competing for the national championship game, as well as the other teams that will be playing in the NY6 Bowl. So now we're going to kind of look at these teams, share our analysis, and kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown on what to expect when these games are played around New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So we're going to break down what the committee released this morning. Our top 4 teams in the country that have made the college football playoff are Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Alabama. Clemson will be playing Alabama for the 3rd straight year in the Sugar Bowl. And that's back-to-back times they played the national championship game. Now they're playing in a semifinal game. It's kind of become a rivalry despite not being conference opponents. And then we've got Oklahoma and Georgia that will be playing out at the Rose Bowl. Very odd location for these two teams, but it'll be very fun to watch. And those two, the winners of these 2 games will be playing for the national championship game. Right off the bat, I would say I like Clemson and Oklahoma in these games, but we know that anything can happen. They're both very intriguing matchups. Clemson and Alabama, just because of the history and because of the dominant performance Clemson had against Miami this past Saturday in the ACC championship game. Oklahoma and Georgia, because of course Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma and their dominant offense, he's more than likely going to win the Heisman Trophy, and they're going up against a very good Georgia defense, as we saw yesterday when they defeated Auburn 28-7. But at the same time, Georgia, has a pretty good offense, led by Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, a dominant rushing attack, and a developed quarterback in Jake Fromm, who's done a tremendous job since coming in week 1. They're going to face an Oklahoma defense that some say are very unproven and not very good. So that's going to be a very intriguing matchup to watch, and it's going to be, can Oklahoma put up the points against a stingy Georgia defense, and can Georgia's offense put up some points against Oklahoma's weak defense as well. So it's going to be very fun to watch in that national semifinal game. And then down here, this rounds out the top 12. These are your top 12 teams in the country, starting with Clemson, ending with Central Florida, who's undefeated, made the Peach Bowl. They're going to face number 7, Auburn. We'll break that down here in a second. But these are your top 12 teams in the country, the ones that matter, of course. Everybody else got some solid bowl games, but these are the biggest games for this postseason. We'll start up here with number 8, USC, and number 5, Ohio State, playing in the Cotton Bowl. Kind of another odd location for these 2 teams. A guy from California and Ohio playing down in Texas, but nonetheless a very good matchup. One thing I'd like to mention, as we all remember, Ohio State beat Wisconsin last night, and there was a lot of controversy over whether Alabama, sitting at 5, should get in over Ohio State, who won their conference championship, but was sitting at 8 and had that damaging loss to Iowa, a 31-point loss earlier in the season. The committee decided to put Alabama in, and I think that made a statement. I kept referring in my previous videos to that Penn State situation that we had last year, and I think the committee also realized that, and that's why Alabama was able to get that 4th spot. So now we have half of the playoff as SEC teams. We have 2 out of the 4 teams that are from the SEC, and we have the potential to see an SEC national championship game, much like we did in 2012 between Alabama and LSU. Alabama has the possibility to play Georgia for the national title. So it's very intriguing, very interesting that the committee put in Alabama over Ohio State. And Ohio State beat Wisconsin by more than what they did last night. They may have decided to jump them a little bit, but because it was such a close game, I think Alabama earned the edge there, and I couldn't agree more. They got the top 4 right completely. These 4 teams are definitely worthy of being in the playoff. So USC Ohio State should be a fun quarterback matchup between Sam Darnold and JT Barrett. It's going to be really interesting to see how this works out. I think we all were hoping for a rematch at one of these locations between USC and Penn State. Usually the bowl committee does not like to do rematches in bowl games. Now, if it's one of the lower level bowls, they do. But as you get higher up, they try not to do rematches. But after such a great Rose Bowl we saw last year, I think we were all hoping for that. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. Penn State, sitting at number 9, will be facing number 11, Washington, in the Fiesta Bowl. And that's going to be a very, very fun match. I expect a lot of points in this one. And it's going to be a great game to watch here. Saquon Barkley, I don't think he's going to be able to win the Heisman. Kind of slowed down as the season went on. But it'll be fun to see if he can get a last boost for he probably leads for the NFL against the Washington defense. And then Wisconsin, Miami. Wisconsin, goes the whole season undefeated, loses their last game of the season to Ohio State in the conference championship game, and does not make the playoff. And we all knew that was coming. It's due to their weak strength of schedule. They get to face Miami, another team who just had a devastating end to the season. I know they dealt with some wide receiver injuries a little bit, but they were number 2 in the country going into the final week of the regular season. Got upset by Pittsburgh. Had a chance to beat Clemson, and if they could do that, they'd get into the playoff, and then just get annihilated by the Tigers 38-3 last night in the ACC championship game. So these two teams, it's going to be interesting to see which one's going to be more motivated. Both lost heartbreakers in their conference championship games, more so Wisconsin because it was so close. Miami was out of it probably after 2 or 3 series. But which team's going to be more motivated to win the Orange Bowl? Of course, as we all know, Miami's technically going to have a little bit of home field advantage in this game. We're going to have to see which team's more motivated, which team really wants it more. Some of these bowl games, some say, are meaningless, but it's still a great way for these seniors to go out on top with a good bowl win in the postseason. So it's just going to be a very intriguing matchup between the Badgers and the Hurricanes. And then the last game of the New Year's Six Bowl will be number 12 Central Florida and number 7 Auburn. Auburn getting annihilated in the SEC championship game. They win that. Of course, they're going to be in the top 4 over Georgia. But they weren't able to get the job done. They scored on the opening series, and that was it for the rest of the game. So just a poor performance by the Tigers, nothing like we saw 3 weeks ago. And then Central Florida winning another thriller in double overtime against Memphis to capture the American Athletic Conference. As we all know, their head coach Scott Frost will be leaving to take the Nebraska job, but what an emotional win for him to go out on top and the Knights to have a chance to upset Auburn in the Peach Bowl to cap off an undefeated season. So it's going to be a very, very fun game to watch. I expect some good points in this one. We know Central Florida has a very dominant offense, and Auburn does too at times, especially if they can get Kerryon Johnson back to full health, and then Jarrett Stidham can see if he can pick apart the Central Florida defense. So we're not going to share any predictions right now. In the next few weeks, when bowl games start to begin on December 16th, we will be sharing our predictions for each bowl game, so that's something to keep your eye out for. But this is your top 4 for the college football playoff, and then, of course, the biggest bowl games of this postseason, the New Year's Six Bowls. I wanted to share that with you guys. I'm sure you've already seen it by now, but just wanted to share that. Next week, you will see our final records, my final overall records, and some of the teams that we did get exactly right on their records. And it's actually been a lot more than I anticipated, so pretty solid season overall. We'll share our final overall records, kind of break that down as the season comes to a close with Army-Navy next Saturday. And then, of course, the following week when bowl games start, we'll be sharing our bowl predictions and breaking down each and every bowl game. Yes, even the ones that involve Sun Belt teams. So we'll make sure to do that. So keep your eye out for that because we've got a couple videos coming these next few weeks. Thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.